from behind me, sitting in the row behind me, I hear this like shout singing, and it's none other than Jace King. Some of you know who he is. He was worshiping right behind me, and he ministered to me that day. It was the most incredible thing because he was singing just so genuinely and full of just truth and recognition of who God was. And this is Jace. I know you can't see his face, but he does check in. You've probably seen him checking your kids in. He's really incredible. And Jace is being obedient to his worshipful heart in that moment, and it ministered to me. Just as David was being worshipful in that moment, and I'm sure it ministered to so many of the people of Israel. May we be so moved to worship the Lord in that way. Now, as much as I'd like to relate to David in this story, and as much as I would like us to relate to David, I think we also need to challenge ourselves regarding Michal's actions, right? So she was very hyper-focused on appearance and her own expectations of how she thought David should be behaving. She thought he should be acting as king and wearing his kingly garb. When it says he danced, some people say he danced naked, some translations. It's not that he wasn't wearing clothes, I promise. It says he was wearing a linen ephod, right? But he was dancing naked of his kingly attire. He was dancing as priest, right? And so Michal had a hard time with that. She said that he should be ashamed of that. Now, expectations when it comes to worshiping God can keep us from a really enriching worship experience, right? Now, the expectations can be placed inwardly and they can be placed outwardly. I know that expectations turned inward towards ourselves can really distract from a genuine heart. And working with students, especially students who've been brought up in a Christian home, they can have really high expectations of themselves and of their behavior and presenting a Christian presence in the world. And so it's really hard for students who have these high expectations to bask in the forgiveness of the Lord, because they take their sin and they bear it really heavily. And even though they would counsel up here and say, you know, you messed up and that's okay, and God forgives you, and his mercies are new every morning, right? They would have all the great encouraging words to say to their peer. They don't receive those same things for themselves. And so it can be really hard when we have these high expectations of ourselves to really enjoy and live in the forgiveness of the Lord. But that can steal our joy and our worship for God. We can often turn our expectations outwardly as well. We can take a look around and be kind of frustrated with what's going on around us. And that can look a lot like legalism. We can be frustrated that people don't adhere to what we think is appropriate when it comes to worshiping God. And that can be here on a Sunday, or even just the way we live our Christian lives. And maybe the music is too loud, or somebody didn't take their hat off when it was time to pray. And I understand. I have to battle these things too. I grew up in a pretty traditional background, and we were at a worship concert or worship night at Micah Mountain High School on Friday, and it was really amazing. Like, all these high schoolers there worshiping the Lord, a lot of them who didn't know the Lord, right? And so they don't know how to behave. And I watched a kid in front of me. He's raising his hand in worship, and his friend comes up and like high fives him. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is crazy. And it's funny that this message was prepped for us today, because God does that. He challenges us in the things that we're learning, and he makes us fight it right in the moment, right? And so I had to be really intentional about, like, okay, God, he doesn't know you. He doesn't understand your holiness, right? And so when people aren't behaving the way that we think that they should, that's our own expectation on them, but we don't know where they're at when it comes to understanding who God truly is and the role that God has in their life. Right? And just remember that judgment is a stealer of joy, right? We don't want to judge others, because then you're distracted and your heart isn't joyful and you can't offer true praise and honor to the Lord.